Bright Tuty. Every student matters.
This is topic 6, and here we'll look at the development indicators. So we have already been looking at some of the indicators which allows us to understand the state of economic development in any country. Okay? So these development indicators, per capita income, national income, these, what do? They help us to understand or measure the quality of life in a country, the quality of life of the people, the living conditions of the people. Okay? They also illustrate the progress of a country, how well the country is doing or how not well the country is doing. Okay, how good the country is doing, how poor the country is doing. Okay, so these indicators, what they show us is they show that how a country is trying to meet its economic, social and environmental goals. Now, when we were looking at the meaning of development at the start of this chapter, we learned what development means for us and also for countries. Right? So the countries have set of goals which they want to achieve in order for the economy or for the country to be developed. Now, the indicators that we studied little bit in the earlier topics and the indicators that we are going to see in this topic, they will help us understand how the countries try to meet, how the countries try to reach and achieve the goal. Okay, in order for their development, in order for the progress to happen in their respective countries. So now we'll look at some of the common indicators by which the country tries to see or tries to meet their developmental goals. The first one is called sex ratio, or in short it's called SR. Now what is a sex ratio? Sex ratio is number of females per 1,000 males. So if you put together 1,000 of males, men, then you see that how many females are there for 1,000 male. That gives us the ratio of females. Now, in a perfect circumstance, this ratio has to be more or less equal. The number of males and the number of females has to be equal, but actually it is not. Okay, the ratio that we see is always in favor or most of the time in favor of males, which means that there is domination of the males. The males dominate. Okay, the males are in majority, so that means the males become dominant, and as a result of that, there takes place sex discrimination. Discrimination of the minority, which is female, by the majority or the dominant, which is male. Okay. Now, the sex ratio in India is very low compared to the other developed countries. In developed countries, the sex ratio, which is indicator of their development, there the sex ratio is more or high. But in India, it is low. So that itself indicates that India is not developed. India is underdeveloped. Okay. So the sex ratio in India in the year 2001 was 933. In 2011, it increased to 940. Whereas in Asia, in United States of America, in the same year, it was 1030. So you can see the difference between the two is quite large. In Japan, the sex ratio was 1040, which is the largest among all these countries. In India, the sex ratio kept on declining from the beginning of the last century. Okay, there was a marginal or slight improvement in the year 1981, and again in 2011 there was another slight improvement in the ratio, but then generally over the last 100 years or 1 century, the index ratio kept on or continuously declined. Why so? Why did the ratio or why did the number of females amongst the number of males, they kept on dropping, or why did this ratio kept on declining? Now there are some of the reasons which gives us an understanding of the steady decline in the ratio. So number one is less care of female children. So female children are cared less, given less support, less love compared to the male children. Second, women are subjected to greater risks of life, especially at the time of the delivery. Okay? Compared to the men, women are subjected to greater risks of life. Their lives are at greater risks. In India, the preference of male dominates the preference of female child. Okay, so male children are preferred more compared to the female children. Female children are preferred less. The female children or the females do not get good diet, good food, and on top of that they also do not get medical care. So lack of health and lack of medical facilities is another cause. Now when this state occurs where the women or the female children do not get proper facilities for their development, then their mortality rates become higher compared to the males. Okay, so with the higher rate of mortality among the females, the proportion of the males become higher. And when the proportion or the number of the males become higher, that makes them majority and the females become minority. Okay, this clearly indicates gender discrimination or sex discrimination. Discrimination of the male, discrimination of the females by the males, because the females are very less in number. Females are not dominant. It's the males who are dominant and majority in number. Okay. Now, in addition to that, women are deprived of equal access to health care, education, and economic rights in comparison to males. So the males have easy access to healthcare, education, and other facilities, but women do not have that. Women do not have equal access. Okay. Now this sex ratio that we have been discussing up until now, that is the sex ratio of India. But when we look at state-wise sex ratio, then there also we find differences between the states. So the sex ratio of Kerala will be different from the sex ratio of Bihar. Okay. Now when we look at all the states, then we find that Kerala has the highest proportion of females. The numbers or the ratio of females to the ratio of males is the highest in Kerala. In 2011, the females numbered 1084 per 1000 males. So you can see the proportion is highest. Now why so? When overall we saw that how the sex discrimination occurs because of the less care, support, and less or lack of health care, lack of education and other facilities provided to the females. But in case of Kerala, we see opposite. But how does this happen? So there are two reasons. Kerala had a matriarchal society. So matriarchal society is the opposite of patriarchal society. In patriarchal society, men are the heads of the family. In matriarchal society, it's the women who are heads of the family, who are dominant, okay, who are powerful. So that is one of the reasons. Another reason is that women in Kerala receive proper and adequate facilities like education and healthcare. But when we see some of the states in North India like Punjab and Haryana, the case is opposite. Here again the index, the sex ratio is very low. Okay, and the women are very less in proportion to men, and there is sex discrimination. Now another indicator is infant mortality rate or IMR. So infant mortality rate is the number of living children per thousand who die before completing 1 year of age. Okay. Now infant mortality rate sounds very similar to death rate, but there is a difference between infant mortality rate and the death rate, because that death rate is an overall number of deaths of the people per thousand people in a country in any year. When the death rate and the infant mortality rate increases, goes up, that itself indicates the underdevelopment of any country. If the death rate and the infant mortality rate decreases, that indicates the development of the country. Okay. So in India, the death rate has been continuously declining, okay, which is a sign of development. In 1901, the death rate was between 11 to 42.6% per thousand. In 1941, it increased to 51 to 27.4 per thousand. In 2008, there was a drastic decrease in that percentage. So it was 8% per thousand. And in 2013, there was a further decrease, and that was 7.4%. Okay. Now, when there is a drastic fall in the death rate, that tells or that indicates that the infant mortality rate has also declined. Okay. So what we can see is that infant mortality rate and the death rate influences each other. With the rise in the infant mortality rate, there's a rise in the death rate. With the drastic fall in the infant mortality rate, there is a decline in the death rate. So in 1990, the death rate of India was 20 to 218 per thousand people. In 2000, it was 70 per thousand, and in 2013, it was 40 per thousand. So you see there was a decline in the rate of death. Now this decline in the infant mortality rate. Now this decline in the infant mortality rate is mainly caused by control of diseases. Control of diseases like pneumonia, diarrhea, and other infectious and parasitic diseases. Now these diseases, it causes the death of infants after they are born or soon after they are born, okay, before they reach the age of 1 year old. And when these diseases are controlled, then what happens? It leads to the decline in the infant mortality rate. But however, the female infant mortality rate is higher compared to the male infant mortality rate. So the number of female children dying is more to the proportion of that of the male infants. Okay. Now there are main reasons which causes the female infant mortality to be higher than the male infant mortality rate. The main reason is discrimination against the female infants. Okay. And there are other reasons which are lack of food, lack of health care, and other lack of other amenities like education. Okay. And another such reason is also neglect of female child. Female children are often neglected. They are not as preferred as the male child. And greater care and support and love and preference is given to the male child. So because of these reasons, the female mortality rate has been higher than the male mortality rate. Another indicator is health. Now by health we get to understand human development or the human welfare, and that itself acts as an indicator to understand the economic development of a country. Okay. Now human development is taken as an alternative to national income, which is the general indicator for understanding the economic development. Okay, so when national income is not taken into consideration, then human development is taken into consideration in place of national income as a key important indicator for measuring the development of economy. Now the human development, it increases with the investment in sectors like education and health. So the human welfare is increased when their health facilities are provided and maintained, when they are given education and the facilities are made accessible to them. Okay, because if the human beings are not given proper health facilities where they can go when they are sick, if they are not given education facilities from where they can get education, then they cannot make use of physical capitals. Example, machines, buildings, where people go to work. Okay, where people go to work to make production, make distribution and exchange of goods and services. Okay, only these physical capitals can be exercised or utilized when the human beings are healthy and educated. Without them being healthy and educated, the physical capitals can go to waste. When the human beings or people are not healthy and educated, then the physical capitals in that country becomes unused, and that leads to underdevelopment of the countries. So you see, lack of health and lack of education leads to the poor status of countries. That means underdevelopment of the countries. Okay. Now, good health is required for the development of the country. Now, good health is important because it aids in the economic development. Along with the good health, good environment, healthy environment is also required. Because good health and good environment allows people to be healthy, active and energetic workforce. And then they go on to use the physical capital, and that use of physical capital leads to production, and that leads to economic development of the country. So this is why workers and governments, they spend money, they invest on health. Okay, they build hospitals, they build medical facilities, and in these medical facilities and hospitals, people, when they become sick, workers, when they become ill, they go and they become fit for work soon. If there were no medical facilities, if there were no hospitals, then they would not become fit soon enough to get back to work. So health expenditure is a very important investment. Okay. Now investment on the health is done in various ways. By constructing medical colleges for the development of medical knowledge, for constructing medical institutes, research institutes, colleges for the medical knowledge, as well as for the study of the disease prevention and treatment of the sick. Now there are other forms of health investment or health expenditure. They are provision of clean drinking water to the people and good sanitation. Okay, because the good health of the people leads to economic development. That is why these investments play a very important role. These investments need to be done. Okay. Now there are many ways in which good health aids in the development of the economy. First, it increases the efficiency of the workers. Efficiency. The workers become efficient. They become good at their work. Okay, they can do work properly. They can put their focus and concentration in their work. And second, it reduces production loss. Production loss are caused when the workers are ill. Okay, so when the workers are ill, they cannot come to work, and then production loss occurs. But if they are healthy, then the reduction in the production loss occurs. Good health permits the use of natural and other resources. People itself form a very important resource. And if they are healthy, if they are active, if they are energetic, then they can be used as a very important natural resource. With their use, the government and the other enterprises and companies, they can spare resources which otherwise would have been used or spent in treating illness of the workers who are sick, in treating the sickness of the workers who are sick. Okay? And good health also increases in the enrollment of children in school, who then goes on to be educated, learns new skills and gets training, and then adds to the human resource, which goes on to contributing the economic development of the country. Now there are two things which are absolutely necessary for good health. Number one is balanced and nutritious diet. So food is very important, but not just any food. It should be nutritious and balanced. The second one is healthcare facilities. So health care is very important. One is food and one is healthcare. Now, even if healthcare facilities are provided, say for example, there are hospitals, there are medical colleges, universities, there are proper equipments, doctors, nurses, etc. Even if they are provided, even if they are made available, that does not mean it is sufficient for the economic development. That does not mean it is enough for the human development. Why? Because those healthcare facilities need to be accessible and to all. Not to few, not to the ones who can afford and are rich, but they need to be accessible to all. Then only it can lead to human development, and that goes on to contribute to the economic development. Another key factor or key indicator is education. Now, with education, with the provision of education or facilities related to education, human development occurs. With human development, economic development occurs. Okay. Now, how does education help in the economic development? Education provides skilled and trained workers. It increases labor productivity. Okay. It modifies and improves human behavior. It promotes science and technology. It develops personality and a sense of national consciousness among the people, among the workers. So that adds to the overall economic development of the country. Now, the expenditure, the investment on education by the people is very similar to the expenditure or investment made by producers or private individuals on capital goods. So just like how private individuals builds hospitals, builds industries, and they purchase equipments, they purchase machines, right? In the similar manner, investment in education, in constructing schools, in constructing research centers, in constructing libraries, these can have similar results. Like for example, the producers, they can get increased profits in future with their investment in capital goods. And people and the government and the countries with their investment in education can lead to the increase of income of the people in future. So you see, both have win-win situation. Okay, but apart from good income opportunities, education also provides people with additional skills, additional training. Alright, so these are some of the benefits or some of the ways in which education helps aid the economic development of any country.